Hi, my name is Allison Sawyer. I will be presenting on direct instruction during shared reading. This PD will have a strong focus on behaviorism and connectionism. For the purpose of this video, many items will be included. You will be able to see each handout that the participants will see. You will also see a mix of pink and blue slides. The pink slides are what the participants would see, and the blue slides are in there for me to further explain to you what I would do with the handouts. These would not be included in the participant slides. So, as participants began coming in the morning, they would see this slide up. Um, they would have markers and paper at their table to make a little name tent with their name, grade, and school that they teach at. They would also take turns rolling the conversation cube and answer the questions. A folded and taped conversation cube will be in the middle of the table. Each person at the table will take turns rolling the cube and answering the question. The goal here is to get the members at the table comfortable with each other. When the timer from the beginning slide is finished, I will ask the participants to get out the agenda, and I will quickly give them an overview of the day. So our first thing we would do is introduction and agenda overview, which is what we are doing now. Then we would move our focus onto behaviorism. They would do a check-in dots, history, and foundational principles, classroom examples, and the 3-2-1 activity. Then we would move on to connectionism, where they would do check-in dots, history, and Thorndike's laws of effect, classroom examples, and then put it into practice. Next, we would move on to direct instruction. Again, we would do check-in dots, what it is, and a video, components of it, and teamwork posters. Then participants would apply their knowledge during group work, where they would have a chance to create a lesson and create materials. Finally, we would wrap it up and do a quick exit ticket. So we'd begin by discussing behaviorism, as I said in our agenda. All participants would get a check-in dot sheet that looks like this. They would write behaviorism in the practice box. Use the colored dots at your table to determine your confidence level about the topic. They would use red if they need help, yellow if they're starting to figure it out, blue making good progression, and green is going great. So this check-in dot sheet will be used throughout the entirety of the PD. This is a way for participants to check their understanding of subject matter throughout the workshop. Then we would discuss what behaviorism is, which it is a theoretical perspective of learning, focuses on observable changes in behavior. Outcome of learning is an observable change in behavior. Behavior is a result of response to stimuli, and external stimuli can be manipulated to strengthen or reduce a behavior. We would then discuss how behaviorism is directly related to direct instruction. It's directly linked to behavioral theoretical perspective. It explicitly focuses on children's attention to reading concepts, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension skills. Teachers should have a clear understanding of reading skills, and they should also know how to assess students' abilities in all areas. Next, we would talk about the foundational principles, and there are 5 foundational principles. 1, the teacher is responsible for children's learning. 2, the key to successful instruction is to find out what the student has not been able to learn. 3, teachers need to find ways to respond to children's individual differences. 4, the more carefully that the skills are taught, the greater the possibility that the children will learn them. And 5, one should teach children in a way that provides maximum feedback on what they are learning and where they are having difficulty. Some classroom examples are assessments of student skills so you know where they're at. 2 is direct instruction on reading skills and model how to use them during whole group instruction. Incorporate phonics skills while reading enlarged text. Direct instruction to unfamiliar vocabulary words in the text. And independent practice. This could be through graphic organizers, response to reading, or any other examples of independent practice. To go over the participants' understanding of behaviorism, they would do the 3-2-1 response sheet. They would use this as a guide to help reflect on what they learned about behaviorism. So the 3-2-1 response, they would focus on the 3 things they want to remember about behaviorism, 2 ideas they'd like to implement right away, and 1 question they still have. Next, we are moving on to connectionism. They would write the word connectionism in the practice box. Use the colored dots at your table to determine confidence level about the topic. We would first begin by going over the history of connectionism. What is it? Stimuli that has occurred after behavior also had an influence on future behaviors. The key researcher was Edward Thorndike, 1874 to 1949, and Thorndike has 4 laws. 1, law of effect, 2, law of readiness, 3, law of identical elements, and 4, law of exercise. Thorndike's law of effect. So law of effect is positive reinforcement. Law of readiness is easier tasks precede those that are related but more difficult. 3, law of identical readiness. The more elements of one situation are identical to the elements of a second situation, the greater the transfer, and thus the easier the learning is the second situation. And finally, law of exercise. The more stimulus response connections are practiced, the stronger the bonds become. The less the connections are used, the weaker the bonds. Some classroom examples. Law of effect. Positive experiences to follow difficult tasks done correctly. Law of readiness. How you structure your lessons throughout the week. Begin with introduction and progress to harder concepts throughout the week. Law of identical elements. Reading is to writing and writing is to reading. And 4, law of exercise. Practice, practice, practice. Incorporate previous learned skills into lessons consistently. Then participants would take out the put it into practice sheet. Think about connectionism. What are you already implementing in your classroom, and what would you like to change? The sheet is a review, or is to help them review things that they are already doing in the classroom and things they plan to change after learning about connectionism. Next, we're moving on to direct instruction and shared reading. Again, please write the direct instruction in the box. Use the colored dots at your table to determine your confidence level about this topic. So, directed instruction, teaching of 6 steps, specifying objectives, devising instructional strategies, developing teaching procedures, selecting examples, sequencing skills, and 6, providing practice and review. What is shared reading? Shared reading at a glance. It is a whole group instruction. During shared reading, children and teachers read aloud a large version of an engaging text that is beyond children's ability to read independently. Texts provide earlier experiences with print and promote the development of reading processes. Texts serve as a mentor text. After the first reading, children take part in multiple subsequent readings to the text. Children discuss the text and the teacher selects teaching points based on children's needs. So what should direct instruction look like? Here I would have participants watch this video. They would also use a video guide. The video guide is going to be used to guide their thinking as they watch a clip of the teacher doing a shared reading lesson. So they would look for things: what does the teacher do? What do the students do? What does the teacher say? And what do the students say? So what are some components of shared reading? First, you want to introduce a text. Engage students' interest in the text with a few opening words. Next, model reading of the text. Read the text to students at a good pace with a focus on enjoyment and understanding. Have a brief discussion. Next, you'll read the text together. Have students read the whole text or selected parts with you. Discuss the text. Guide conversation about the meaning and language of the text and invite students to share their thinking. Next, teaching points. Select a specific part or parts of the text to revisit to make teaching points. This can be accomplished over a number of subsequent readings. And lastly, repeated readings. Revisit the text again on subsequent days, making additional teaching points and supporting students in gaining independence in progressing the text and processing the text. Next, we will do a processing and response activity. This is going to be with your group. Each member should grab a different colored marker, and you will have a chart paper in the middle of your table. With the information you learned, I want you to make a visual representation of the information they have learned about this topic. Each member needs to add something to the poster using their colored marker. The goal of this activity is for each group to have a visual representation that represents information learned about the theories and how they are related to direct instruction and shared reading. The next portion of our PD is going to be applying your knowledge. As a group, you're going to decide on a specific book, skill, poem, song to write a lesson plan for. Choose something that you will use in your classroom. And then I want you to also be able to create the materials that would go along with this lesson. So if you need to use an anchor chart to make poems or songs, maybe to teach a specific skill, I want them to have all of the materials they need in order to implement this lesson into their class. Then here's a 60-minute timer. The portion of this workshop is designed to allow the participants to not only apply their knowledge, but to also give them an opportunity to have a lesson already planned and materials created to use in their classroom. And finally, to wrap it up, each participant will get out their exit ticket. I want you to write the main thing that you learned from today's training and one thing you learned today that you are going to implement in your classroom. And that would be my PD. Thank you.